And Brandon, let's move on into our next team, and that will be the Minnesota Golden Gophers. And this is a team that I kind of feel like with this one, maybe it's because this is the fourth one we're doing and is the third one where we are talking about the head coach to start. I feel like the for sure starting point has to be PJ Fleck, as he this offseason left Western Michigan. I almost said West Montana. I don't know what I was going to say there.
West Montana,
Western
yes.
Michigan, and is now with the Minnesota Golden Gophers. Rode a boat coming to Minnesota, and I think this one's easy. I'm just going to hit you with it, Brandon. How successful is PJ Fleck going to be in his first year at Minnesota?
Well, I think PJ Fleck's going to definitely have some automatic success right away. Mm-hmm. And it's because I think it's pretty simple. Look at this running back tandem that these guys have. So PJ Fleck, we know what PJ Fleck's teams do. They score points, they move the football, most likely with the quarterback.
Especially if they've got a weapon like Corey Davis on the outside.
Corey Davis.
Top five draft pick. Top 5 draft pick on the outside.
So how about this? How about Rodney Smith and Shannon Brooks? Rodney Smith last season, 1,158 yards, 16 scores. That's just him.
Yep.
And
just
then you bring in Brooks and what he's able to do. This is possibly one of the best tandems at running back in the Big Ten. Now, we just talked about Justin Jackson, what he's able to do by himself. Now you bring in these guys, and I think that with the offensive line, you lose your center, Tyler Moore, to transfer. He transfers away. And then Jonah Persig to graduation. Those 2 guys are gone, but you still have 3 guys returning. You still have an offensive line that's going to be pretty solid. And it's possible that all guys on the offensive line could be 320 pounds or more. That's a big boy.
Big boys.
That's a big boy.
Talk about some hog mollies there, Brandon.
So you do that, and that's huge. Mm-hmm. Then you look at the wide receiver position. You're going to have to ask Rashad Still to step up and lead the receiving core.
He was the one I was going to bring up, because remember the conversation that we had, it was probably 2 months ago. Let me look at the exact date. That date that we had that conversation was May 14th. We even asked the question of, is Rashad Still going to be this year's Corey Davis now that he has PJ Fleck on the coaching staff at Minnesota? He is the one that I look to, because I look at PJ Fleck, and it's great to have the running back that they have. However, if Rashad Still, and I know the big point that we made in that last conversation was Ricky only had 18 catches. Well, my thought to that is PJ Fleck wasn't the coach last year. This team's going to not only row the boat, but they are going to throw the ball, and Still is going to be the
new
guy.
For Minnesota.
Yeah, and Still is going to be the guy who is probably going to be on the majority of the targets and receptions.
I think you're right. And then you have to take a look at the quarterback situation. Are you going with Connor Rhoda, who is looking like the guy who's going to be in line to be a quarterback? Or do you go to Demery Croft, who could also be the one leading this offense? I just want to make a note. Demery Croft, same high school I went to.
Really?
Boylan.
He's
Catholic,
a Boylan?
Boylan Catholic High School.
He's a Boylan guy?
Yes, sir.
I didn't know that.
Yes, sir. Yes.
You know what's the more interesting thing about Rhoda and Croft? They have one combined career start, and it is with Rhoda.
Exactly. These guys are youngins. They are youngins.
Talk about inexperience.
Not a whole lot of experience there at the quarterback position, which is why I'm very, very happy that PJ Fleck is the quarterback. Is the coach of this team, because the quarterback position, as important as it is, and they only threw quarterbacks last year for Minnesota. They combined to throw 9 touchdown passes.
Yep.
9 touchdown passes. That's unheard of. That's unheard of. Total on the season. But I think that you wouldn't want anyone other at this point, young guy like PJ Fleck, working with these young quarterbacks to develop them, to bring them along, to teach them what he was able to do at Western Michigan. I mean, who else would you want than PJ Fleck, who knows how to do it and knows how to be successful with a quarterback, with an offense? This Minnesota team has such an opportunity to be scary good. Now, are they going to be throwing 20 touchdowns right away? Maybe not. But will they be coming along? Yes, they will.
Well, and that's the thing. I expect this offense to be, like you said, it's not going to be something where it's like, wow, this is a team that's throwing for this many touchdown passes, this many yards. But I would like to see it to where it's like, this is a team that is vastly improved from last season. And I think that the big thing, it has to start at quarterback. And the one thing that I kind of question is, are both of these quarterbacks going to be so inexperienced that we look at it and go, are they going to have the tools to do what PJ Fleck wants to do year one? Because the thing that I think about is if he can't, because him and quarterback coach, I want to make sure I get the name right, him and the offensive coordinator / quarterbacks coach in Kirk Chiroka, they both have said that a starter's probably going to not or might not be named until mid-August. Guys, games start August 31st. Your first game is August 31st against Buffalo. I want to throw this idea out to you. Could you see a situation where against Buffalo at home on a Thursday on August 31st, that if they haven't for sure set a guy by mid-August, that Fleck comes out and says, you know what, both quarterbacks will play in this one. And really they use that first game as kind of like an audition for either Rhoda or Croft to win the job and be the starter for that next game going forward at Oregon State.
You know, Ricky, I think you're completely right, especially with two young guys who have one start between them.
Mm-hmm.
It's crazy.
And it's Rhoda's.
It's crazy. So it would make all the sense in the world, I think, to be able to have both guys, if you're not set on a starter by week one, have both guys come in, have both guys be able to kind of have a showcase in a sense.
Mm-hmm.
Why not? Why not?
And especially because, it's only Buffalo you're playing week one.
Well, exactly. And it's not to say that, Minnesota's not going to be very good this year, so, just let's see. Let's just see what we go with. No, absolutely not. It goes to kind of the point of what you just said is they're not playing, Michigan. They're not playing Ohio State, and they're trying to do this quarterback tryout of who's going to be the one that we go with down the line. And that doesn't even necessarily mean that that's the one you go with down the line. It's just the one that maybe is in a better spot to start right now. But that's kind of the luxury you have with having two quarterbacks, being able to try them both, and they're both going to bring really good things to the table. And that's what you want to be able to see. So I don't think that there's a problem with that at all. I don't think that that's out of the question, possibly, for what they're able to do. Most teams, I think, are going to want to have a decision on who they have at quarterback before the season starts. But if you're in the spot that they could be in, I could see that happening.
Well, and another thing that I like looking at the schedule is I love Minnesota's schedule based on their situation. And that situation being you have a new head coach coming in. I wanted to say first-year head coach, but that's not true. He was the head coach with the Mustangs. You have a new coach coming in, first year on the job at Minnesota. It's a good thing that your schedule is very backloaded. And when I say that, is all of the tough games to me are Halloween weekend and later. Because your first games up until Halloween, Buffalo, Oregon State, and Mid-Tennessee are your non-conferences. Minnesota should be winnable. Those should be winnable games for the Gophers in those three. Maryland should be winnable. Purdue should be winnable. Michigan State, we'll see.
You should start off at least 5-0 to begin the season. You
should start 5-0, and you should maybe even start 6-1 because of Illinois.
Possibly, but what I'm saying is that even not even saying the Michigan State game, you could have 5 wins. First 5 weeks start the season. That's a strong start.
And that's what I like. It's everything after those first 7 games where then things get tough. Road games at Iowa and Michigan.
Michigan, yeah.
And then you have the Nebraska game, then on the road at Northwestern, then Wisconsin. That's the thing I like about this schedule because it lets PJ Fleck kind of institute what he wants, gets the team going. You can mess around with some things maybe in those first 3 games, get to a good 5 wins or maybe 6 by the time you get to Iowa. And by the time you get to October 28th, when you're starting that rough part of the season, your team is basically, that's where we get to the point where you hear it all the time with freshman or sophomore, where it's like, yeah, he's a freshman on paper, but at this point he's closer to being a sophomore than he is a freshman. Yeah. This team is closer to being yours for next season than it is to being that fresh PJ Fleck team we saw at the beginning. So that is something about this schedule I love if you are a Gopher fan.
And I think another thing that's going to be such a positive for Minnesota is their defense. Mm-hmm. Their defense last season was the 21st best defense. They allowed 349 yards and 22 points per game. Mm-hmm. Now, let's go back again to last year just for a minute. And if
we going in the Wayback Machine?
If their offense had more pop or some pop outside of the running back position, could you imagine where they could have been last year? They ended 9-4. They could have been 10 wins. They could have been 11 wins, possibly.
Well, think about it. I mean, this is a team that once ago had a fairly good schedule, and it was, I'm thinking, the 2014 season where they did have, coming into the bowl game, they were 8-4, and then ran into that top 25 Missouri Tiger team and lost to them. They used to be a fairly, I'm going to say, quality team not too long ago, at least 3 years ago, and as of late, things have started to down-click a little bit, and that's what led to or downcline a little bit.
There you go.
As some like to say, and that's what led to this new coaching change into PJ Fleck.
And that's what I want to go back to, is that that's not too far off in the sense of them being able to win some more games last year. They lost to Penn State 29-26 OT. They lost to Iowa 14-7. They lost on the road at Nebraska 24-17. And then the biggest margin of error, I guess you could say, was on the road at Wisconsin 31-17. And those first 3 games, winnable games. They could have beat Iowa. Any more offense out of 1 touchdown. Nebraska, you lose by 1 touchdown. Penn State, lose by 3 in OT. Winnable games against those teams last year. But again, they didn't have much pop at offense. It's great to have such a good running game. That's outstanding. But when you have really nothing going at the quarterback position, everyone expects you to run. Everyone expects you to run the football. So they stack the box. There's no need to go back. They only had, I think, 188 completions last year. One guy caught 66 of them. There was no danger of a team having to deal with the pass against Minnesota. Run, yes, but everyone knew it. And now Minnesota needs to change that up, and PJ Fleck is the right man to do that.
Well, and that's what I was going to say. We are going to see a different offense this year just with PJ Fleck being on the field for the Minnesota Golden Gophers, and that's why this team, that's how you win. Yeah, in the Big Ten, it's good to have a solid defense. We saw last year Michigan won a lot of games because their defense was so strong. They had a strong defensive unit to where some of the deficiencies that the offense might have had were kind of masked by the defense. However, you can win with offense in this league. You can win with a high-powered offense. I mean, hell, PJ Fleck did it last year at Western Michigan, and that was a non-Power 5 team. Yeah, like I said, he had a top 5 wide receiver in the NFL draft and the number 1 rated and drafted wide receiver in that draft in Corey Davis. However, I think with just having him on the field, it is going to do great things for this Minnesota Golden Gopher team. However, when I look at how they play into the Big Ten West, I'm not so certain that they compete for anything of substance. To me, they're To me, if it's a great season, they are probably 4, maybe 3 at very, like if you're getting to 3, you've had a great season in the Big Ten. But I still see them as possibly the 4th team in this division, in this side of the Big Ten, behind Wisconsin, behind Northwestern, behind Iowa. My main question is, could they be a team that with PJ Fleck this year, if they play well, could they pass Iowa? And Iowa and Minnesota kind of shift to where Minnesota is now in the upper top 3 of the West.
I think that's a possibility. It's a possibility, and I would say that it would be almost certain that could happen. However, there isn't right now
a lot of evidence.
It's not that. It's there. You don't have a strong presence yet at quarterback. You don't have a strong presence. You have 2 guys there, but you don't have a strong presence of what either of them really can do. And I think if that was something that was shored up, if that was something that was solid, then there would be reason to say, watch out, everybody. Minnesota and the Golden Gophers are coming for the Wisconsin Badgers. Cross off everybody else. Cross off Iowa. Cross off Nebraska. They're coming for Wisconsin. And that's if they had a solid option at quarterback. I'm not saying that either of these guys are not solid. We don't know yet. We don't know where they're going to be in the middle of the season. We don't know where they're going to be at the end of the season. And I'm not saying that neither of them will be. Of what I know about both of them, very good. Guys who can throw the football and run a little bit as well. So, and that's for both of them. Either one of these guys could be the leader. Either one of these guys could go off and be very good. But nothing yet proves that will happen this season. So because they're so inexperienced, that's why I won't say for sure that they would jump Iowa this year.
And that's what I wanted to end with. Even though they are inexperienced at quarterback, like we said, one career start between the 2 guys, I do think this season will be, I think that they'll get 5 wins heading into the Michigan State game. They'll for sure get maybe 6 wins before that tough part of the schedule. They will go to a bowl game this year, either if it's at 6 or greater than 6 wins this season. And the big thing at the end of this season, Minnesota fans will be asking is, okay, we saw year 1 of the PJ Fleck Minnesota Golden Gophers. Do we see a future where this team is going to be the team to compete for the Big Ten West crown in years to come? Because think about what he did with Western Michigan, a 1-11, 1-13 campaign, I want to say. It is 1-11, I was right, in 2013. Then back-to-back 8-5 seasons, very Kevin Sumlin-like. And then a breakthrough 13-1 season in his final year, and a Cotton Bowl berth against Wisconsin in last season before coming over to the Golden Gophers. So that's how I think it's going to be. Any final thoughts before we throw it to them?
Let's throw it.
This is where we throw it to you guys. Let us know down below, what do you think about PJ Fleck in year 1? And this is one where we haven't gotten to do this in quite a while for the Big Ten, I think. Which quarterback would you pick? Is it going to be Rhoda? Is it going to be Croft? Which one are you picking heading into this season? And really,
Ricky, I think one of the bigger things is I think we got their names right.
I think we did. That's something that we've been working on here. We've taken in the constructive criticism, and we are working on that
constructive criticism
here for the podcast. But let us know down below what you guys think.